low number of learners turned up at their schools following days of fighting in the area. The government was keen to ensure that schools reopen as planned amid heightened security. Ibrahim Karanja has been camping at Olmoran in Laikipia County. Take a look.
Between 7 and 8 a.m. Monday, young but eager learners start streaming into Olmoran Primary School. Some walk by themselves, while others in groups, perhaps discussing what felt like a nightmare when violence erupted in their villages. Some were escorted by their parents. They have sung the national anthem for long, but today it sounded and felt different, its words reassuring. On this date, they hope to rewrite the stories of their lives. In a stream of 35 pupils, only 4 in Class 8 East were brave enough to attend school.
Wamefika around 65 out of 582, the total population of the school.
2 police officers were on guard. The gates at the actual Tumaini Academy in Garenarok are closed, eager to soon open up for learners, one would imagine. Police officers assigned here reported early morning, but save for few staff, most kept away. Josephat Ebei, a parent, came to assess whether he'll allow his 2 children to school.
The
learners from here are continuing with studies few kilometers away at the St. Mark's Catholic Church. Their numbers still very low.
Lakini unajua kuconvince wanafunzi na kuconvince wazazi, including ourselves teachers at pale Garenarok, kwa sababu shule yetu iko katika kijiji kinaitwa Garenarok, si kitu rahisi sana. So we need to buy sometimes.
This was the scenario in various other schools from Githiga, Ndunyu Primary. In Survey Secondary, only 6 learners were present.
I want to confirm that all of them have teachers, though not 100%, but each and every school has such teachers.
Intensified police patrols around the schools adds into the assurance provided by the static police officers present at schools. Yet Meriguit Primary School is still closed. This is where armed bandits torched a school store. A similar feel of abandonment hovers around Miharate Primary.
We are sure in the course of the day, tomorrow, they'll be trooping back.
The distribution of relief food to affected families was decentralized from Olmoran Center to the villages beyond.
Tukianza kuaddress mambo ugawaji wa chakula vizuri na kudistribute askari vizuri, hii mambo in the course of this week watoto watakuwa merudi kwa shule.
Meanwhile, the Senate Departmental Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations toured the area and had sittings with locals at Olmoran.
You cannot tell your people, you cannot glorify bandits, that the bandit has a sophisticated weapon better than the Kenyan government.
Tusaidiane tuandike motion to declare this conservancy a dangerous area, to declare it a crime zone, and to urge the national government to take it over and secure the people of this area. Na hiyo itafanyika kwa kuleta KWS kulinda hilo shamba.
It is now heading to 90 hours since normalcy returned to Olmoran. What were the sounds of gunshots have quickly been replaced by sounds of children playing or that of business people conducting their businesses. What many locals hope, though, is that the memories of death, eviction and theft of livestock will now remain memories that will never have to be relived again. Ibrahim Karanja, KTN News from Olmoran, Laikipia County.
Thank you, Ibrahim, for that story, and we are still keeping tabs on that. And Ibrahim joins us live by way of phone from Laikipia. Good morning, Ibrahim. It's good to speak to you again. Yesterday, you were at Tumaini St. Mark's Catholic Church, where 70 out of 582 learners had only reported. How is the situation like, especially today?
Well, actually, George, the school that had 70 out of 582 learners reporting was All Moran Primary School, which was at the center, at the shopping center in All Moran. However, at Tumaini, what we saw is that there were roughly about 80, 90 students in a school of about 300 learners. And this, remember, Tumaini has actually physically moved from where the actual physical school is. Learners are learning from the St. Mark Catholic Church. And what the situation is expected to be for the better part of this week is that the numbers will still be low, given that parents are looking at what is happening at schools before they eventually release their children. Yesterday, we caught up with one of the parents at Tumaini Academy, and he had just gone to see whether the school was on, and what he found at the actual physical school was that it was only police officers who are there, because like I have mentioned, the learning had been moved to the St. Mark Church. And this particular man said that when violence erupted in that particular area, he moved his children to a safer place, and thus yesterday was trying to see whether they could still come back. He said if the school opens, if the planners and the teachers return to the actual physical school, then he'll allow his children back. This owing to the fact that where the school has been moved to is quite a distance, and the children might not be able to walk to that particular church. And also, there are two schools, George, that might take quite a long time to resume, despite teachers being there. I'm speaking about Meriguit Primary School and Miharate Primary School. These are schools that are right or smack in the middle of the villages that were attacked. Remember, in Meriguit, there was an attempt to burn the school. Actually, bandits burnt down the school store, much as the fire was contained in good time. So these two schools will really take a long time to have learners go back, because just despite parents or learners not going back, the people are not even in their villages. People ran away, especially when Miharate was attacked. People ran away. They are living in the shopping centers, so they won't go back. I also spoke to some of the parents from that particular area who said that yes, we are told they are police officers, but we are still feeling unsafe. We are still not going to allow our children, because they said they see strangers walking in that particular area, people who they suspect could be waiting to lay an ambush in the schools once they open. But the government insists that all is well, people should go back to school, and the other parents should go back to their villages and homes. But also, rather, perhaps lastly, the other thing that makes it very difficult for the schools smack in the middle of the villages to resume is that parents and these families ran away, and the government is yet to complete the construction of the houses and restore or resettle the people who had been evicted, because by yesterday, only one model house had been completed at Kisindogo, yet about 29 houses were supposed to be constructed for families. So with families having nowhere to live, of course, they will not go back to their villages, and that it means that the children also will not go back to school. Then there is that threat by Kupet that it will not allow its teachers back to school. We want to see how that unfolds. And if at all Kupet will make good its threat, then it might paralyze learning and the resumption of learning in that area, George.
Ibrahim Karanja, thank you for that comprehensive report. He was speaking to us virtually, or rather he was speaking to us live by way of phone. And it is at this point that I bring in Dr. Susan Gitau, who is a psychologist, and she's joining us virtually. Dr. Ari, I believe you've heard what Ibrahim had to say, and top of the agenda, he says that the parents and the learners feel they are not safe to go back to school. Is it even ideal for the government to pull in such a move that is in the midst of all this, in the backdrop after a month of violence in the area, that the children would have to go back to school? Is it an ideal time?
Thank you so much, Mariga. One of the things I know is that the government is a system, and a system likes to run smoothly. And I know there could be that panic that some of the students who are candidates are basically missing out, or the government may feel like they're failing because school is going on. It wouldn't be an ideal time if there is no support for these children. But if there is support, and by support I mean psychosocial, where we'll have seen some efforts being made to ensure some of them have shelter. But most important is the psychological wellness. the mental health of these parents, the mental health of these students, the mental health of these teachers is important. So the timing may be right if there is support, but if there is no support, right now as I'm talking to you, there's the class 8 girl who is being laid to rest today in Gatanga. She had lost 2 people in her family, and very close to the grandfather because she was the only one living with the grandfather. She goes back to school because she needs to go back to school, but her state of mind is not in check. So what happens? She's not able to coordinate, she's not able to concentrate, she's not able to have that interest for school. And the teachers don't know this, because I'm also thinking about the teachers. How prepared are they for these children? And so the teacher who is innocent, who doesn't have the skills of identifying whether this child is mentally unwell, goes ahead and demands for work to be done. That's the work of a teacher. But what does a child internalize? Because most of the time we ignore them. We adults are very good at saying how we feel, how we are thinking. We even talk about how the situation is ongoing. We talk about how we are affected, but we rarely think about children. So it would actually be very inhumane to force a child especially to go back to school when they are basically saying, I am not ready, I am so afraid. We are actually talking about deep trauma, and you can also re-traumatize, or what we call victimization. Yes.
Yeah, Doctor, allow me to cut you short, and I want us to segment this. We start with the learners, the parents, and then we go to the teachers. And let's start with the learners. From a psychologist's point of view, what is the state of mind of these learners, these students? I mean, some may not be able to express what they feel, but perhaps it may be seen in their behavior. From a psychologist's perspective, how are their minds revolving? I mean, trying to gather all this. What is the state of their minds right now?
It's good to dissect this child in a holistic way. So physically, if a child is traumatized, they do not experience themselves the normal way. Some could be actually having stomach upsets, severe headaches. Some of them could actually be having diarrhea. Some of them could be feeling they have chest pains. And they can talk about pain all over their bodies. That is physical. When we go to the cognitive, they could lose concentration, they could have poor attention, attention span actually, they could also have poor memory, and they could also have nightmares. They could also be having very irrational thoughts that I'm going back to school to die. It may not be true, but the state of their thinking is so irrational at this time. It needs to be regulated and balanced. When you talk about emotional well-being, these children could be so afraid, and fear is very, very stressful for any child. And you can pick it even in their behavior. Sometimes the way they look at you, their eyes are wide open, they are always looking like they're always on the alert mode. So tell me how they can concentrate. You can also find some of them feeling guilty of maybe my friends died in this crisis and I'm here back to school. Some of them could be feeling, I can see my parents are struggling so much and here I am insisting, or teacher is insisting, or the government is insisting I go back to school. Some of them lost their loved ones. Some of them lost their neighbors. They have not had that process, and the normal process of mourning and grieving, and you're expected to go start a new life. So I know I have met Laikipia leadership. I never met the member of parliament. I never met the MCAs. I never met the member at the county government. But the county government leadership knows. We met sometimes last year, and I'm thinking Laikipia should be leading in mental health, because we sat down, and if you as an adult, you're able to see how you are affected mentally. How about a child? And why I worry about children, because the rate of suicide, if we were to have all the data right now about the young people, it would be shocking, Mariga. So it's important to know even their behavior. Some can become very irritable, very violent. Some of them can start truancy, They don't want to go to school. So you see a child went to school in the morning, and then the teacher says this child never reported. And some of them in very severe situations, they might totally run away. We don't want to lose the child. We need to do something right now. And I believe because this country has counselors, this country has psychologists, They can do the preventive measure. And if there are severe cases, I believe even the psychiatrists can come on board. If we do that, all of us, even the teachers being equipped, then we can think about this child in a way that the child feels we are treating them like human beings.
Indeed, you talk about the, the mental wellness of the children, and it is at that point that I ask you, apart from restoring security, because we've seen all these heavy security apparatus being deployed to that region. What else should the Ministry of Interior consider, or even perhaps with other ministries, in terms of offering psychological support, first of all, to the children?
One of the things is that even the armed police officer or security officers, you do not know, these children had gunshots throughout. So we are basically talking about a child that can easily have the flashbacks. So it's important that if the security officer is here with the gun, how do they ensure that there is safety? It means they don't need to walk alone. And that's why I'm saying we have the teacher here who is also supported with the relevant life skills for this time. We also have the counselors and psychologists to work with them, especially if we do not have a child with severe signs and symptoms of PTSD. Otherwise, it's important to work as one system. The only problem I've always said in this country, one thinks I can do it alone. You can't. We have seen children take their own lives. And I can't wait here. That's why I said I'll stop everything as I was doing to raise my voice for the children. And I know in Laikipia, I have met counselors in Laikipia. You know yourself that we met as a leader there. Let us do what needs to be done. We can never be too poor or too active, too busy for our children. And if it's done, they really love it. By the way, children are easier to remove from traumatic situations if the approach or the intervention is appropriate than even adults. Because their mind is still malleable, they are actually still growing and developing. Thank you.
Dr. Now to the parents, what kind of psychological help would the government perhaps, or even any volunteer, or even for instance, the Psychologist Association consider to help the parents who are sending their learners to school?
One of the things I would like to tell parents, because maybe you might not be reached because maybe if you are spread out, sometimes bringing you together, that could be the work of the local administration. And that can also be done if they want. I've always said about Nyumba Kumi, how I wish one day this is going to be a reality in this nation. But parents, I would like them to know, you are a very important object as a parent. How safe are you? And even when the world is breaking inside of you as a parent, and I'm talking to this, I'm talking like this, Mariga, because a lot is happening in our homes. So I'm not only talking to that parent in Laikipia, but that parent that has a crisis situation inside your house. I would like to tell you, you are a very important object in your child's life. So the safety within you, and I always tell parents, this breath of life that we're given is so, so important that the more you keep breathing in and breathing out, your voice, if I start right now, you'd watch it and see, out. You become calm, and this goes to the teachers as well. You become safe, and whatever you're saying, the child's mind, especially the limbic system, the emotional part of the brain relaxes as well. So you are able to tell your child what you want to tell them. If it's a prayer, and that's why I'm saying the security officers, are they used to calmness, the talking? Not necessary. But right now, if you're going to be near a child and you're a security officer with that gun, you must mind your voice, you must mind the way you're moving, you must mind the way you're trying to cock that gun or how you're holding it, because the child is overly alert. They are hypersensitive at this particular moment. Even the teachers, this is not the time to use the cane on that child. Even the parent, this is not the time to be violent on your child. And when I talk about violence on the child, verbal, physical, emotional, psychological, and even spiritual, because there are some you can even try to force to pray and they are wondering, where was this God when all this was happening? So we need to also go into the world of the child. As a parent, be a good listener. Be a good listener to that child. And if Red Cross, I know you're always there all over, and Kenya Counseling Psychological Association, the counselors in Laikipia, kindly hold hands and do what you can do. And if there is extra support, this is where we say the whole of this country of Kenya is not in crisis like Laikipia. Can we have some counselors being ferried and psychologists to go and support Laikipia County?
Right.
Thank you.
Talking about, Dr. talking about support of, counselors and psychologists to go to Laikipia, the teachers are perhaps, of course, the group of people who spend most of the time with the learners. What kind of psychological support would work for them, one, and two, to also enable them, sort of guide the learners, because this is a two-time psychological help, one for themselves and two for them to be able to walk through with the learners, trying to understand them. Ideally, how long would this take, and what would be perhaps the parameters of undergoing this?
Are you still seeing me, Mariga? Are you still listening to me?
Yeah, I'm listening to you.
Beautiful. Teachers, and I always say I salute you so much, teachers. One of the things I know is that the teacher is given one unit called guidance and counseling in schools. But when it comes to emerging issues and traumatic experiences, post-traumatic stress disorder, or this one is what we call post-violence trauma, the teacher may not have the skills. So the teacher needs to be given these skills. So capacity building is the first stage. And before they are even given this capacity building, can we also know the state of the mind of the teacher? Because in most cases, the teacher is seen that they know everything. The teacher is seen as the one who can do anything. So for the first time, knowing how our CBC curriculum is running, knowing how corona pandemic has taken the world of the teacher, we need to also think about that teacher. Because we might blame the teacher because the teacher has become more irritable, more violent, or we can say the teacher is less understanding, but we know the state of the teacher. So the teacher needs psychological debriefing, the teacher needs life skills training, the teacher needs specific trauma intervention skills. And I'm very happy because National Research Fund gave a group of us, researchers, university academicians, some money so that we can do research on psychosocial intervention. And I hope we are going to start it very soon, because once we do a few counties, we can actually roll this out so that the teacher can be equipped. I want to tell you, if the teacher is equipped, then this country is going to be very safe, and especially our children, because one of the things I have known about the teacher is that they love knowledge, and once they know they can help a child. And I want to say for the teacher in Gatanga, I was in that family last night, and they are sorry because the teacher felt so guilty that I sent the child away. But the teacher never knew how to identify how a child that is traumatized, or how a child with complicated grief is like. And so we want to empower the teacher. And in fact, right now, the Ministry of Education, or the people that are in charge of education in Laikipia, and if there's a docket for guidance and counseling in the Directorate of Education, you should actually have prepared the teacher before you even give them those children. Otherwise, we're going to have a community that is mentally ill, and a community that will be pushing for results. And watch this space, if something is not done, you find results being affected. So I want to say it's time we work together, and we cannot ignore mental illness anymore. With all what we have been seeing in this country, it's time to arise and work together.
Dr. Susan Gitau, thank you so much for speaking to us. Indeed, important points that raise their capacity building for the teachers and everything else that needs to be done in terms of psychosocial support and psychological support. Thank you so much, Dr. for joining us this morning. Great. Now, we want to take a short commercial break, but when we come back, we shall be informing you